Former Raiders #1 draft pick says he could still ball out in the NFL today.
Still to this day, if I was to get in some shape, I still feel like it's not 32 guys that's out there that's better than me right now.
Obviously, he would have to get in shape first. At one point with the Raiders in 2009, Jamarcus Russell was pushing almost 300 pounds. And one of the biggest criticisms of Jamarcus Russell is the Kirk Morrison statement that Jamarcus Russell was given blank tapes and didn't even watch film.
Bro, I watch film, but I ain't the type going there and watch 5 hours of film. I ain't never been that type of player. I go out there and play football, bro. Make plays, bro.
Filippo kind of looking around and was like, it was a blank DVD. So he didn't watch the DVD, but he told everybody, oh, y'all watch it, I did.
But why would you play a game with my life? Why would you put me over like that bullshit me?
In a recent interview in the Pivot podcast, we have learned a ton about Jamarcus Russell's history with the Raiders. Whose fault is it? Is it all on Jamarcus Russell and his work ethic and his way, or was he just a part of a broken organization that wasn't going to succeed anyways? Like Jamarcus Russell has said, even Brady and Peyton Manning would be trash if they were on a bad team.
If you put Tom Brady or Peyton Manning on one of them teams, what? Shit, come on, bro.
So perhaps if Jamarcus Russell was drafted by Bill Belichick, he would be the Brady of today. All jokes aside, Jamarcus did not have the greatest coaching staff while he was a part of the Raiders. The Raiders had Lane Kiffin in 2007, who would eventually be fired in 2008, and Tom Cable would take over for 2008 and 2009, Jamarcus Russell's whole entire tenure with the Raiders. We're going to get into this history and figure out whose fault was it, and what have we learned with this new Jamarcus Russell interview. Jamarcus Russell claims that when he was with the Raiders, he did not get the support he needed to succeed, unlike Derek Carr, who he believes is getting a ton of support today.
The guy that they got there now, they for him. It shows. The coach wanted coaching. They went and got a receiver that got there can catch whatever you throw at him.
Wait, stop. Make sure you like this video and subscribe to this channel for more Raiders content. The year before Jamarcus Russell joined the Raiders were a bad team. They had tried the Art Shell 2.0 experiment, and Art Shell went 2-14, the worst Raiders record since 1962. Incredibly bad, and it was kind of sad because Art Shell had been a legend with the Raiders. Al Davis really loved Art Shell, and it kind of hurt for him to have to fire him. But Art Shell made the mistake of making Tom Walsh the offensive coordinator, who had been out of the NFL for years and was running a bed and breakfast in Idaho. The offense was so outdated, people referred to it as the bed and breakfast offense, and it pissed off wide receivers like Randy Moss and Jerry Porter, who would eventually leave the team. So Al Davis wanted to go young. He wanted to find Gruden 2.0, the new young hip thing. So he went with 31-year-old Lane Kiffin from USC, who would be the youngest coach in the NFL at the time. Now, why did the Raiders pick Jamarcus Russell? Why did Al Davis select Jamarcus Russell, even though Lane Kiffin did not want Jamarcus Russell? Around 2007 and a few years prior, there were rumors that Al Davis wanted to find the next great black quarterback. He had felt like he had had their first black head coach, first Hispanic head coach to win a Super Bowl, but he wanted to find the next black QB, and that is why in 2006 he did sign quarterbacks like Aaron Brooks. He also in 2007 had Dante Culpepper starting in front of Jamarcus Russell and was supposed to mentor Jamarcus Russell. So it makes sense that he would draft Jamarcus Russell, who was a highly touted quarterback coming out of LSU after having that amazing performance in the Sugar Bowl. And so McCown and Dante Culpepper would primarily start in 2007, and they would alternate based on who was healthy, and Jamarcus Russell was supposed to sit back and learn. But even Jamarcus Russell admits in this Pivot podcast that he is not a film type of guy.
They talk about a film thing once, like, bro, I watch film, but I ain't the type going there and watch 5 hours of film. I ain't never been that type of player.
What's crazy is he even mocks certain quarterbacks who watch hours and hours of films, saying that some of them are still trash.
The other quarterback might go in there and watch 10 hours. But guess what? He might not be shit on the field.
Right. But later on in the interview, he would admit that he wishes he wouldn't have gained so much weight, and he wishes he would have watched more film.
But let's get this straight, home. I ain't asking for no pity from nobody under no circumstance. What happened, happened.
So clearly all these reports by people like Kirk Morrison are true, that Jamarcus Russell just straight up didn't watch film and didn't learn under Dante Culpepper and Josh McCown like he was supposed to. What's crazy is Jamarcus Russell did not start a game until week 17 2017 in his rookie year, which shows that he just wasn't ready in the views of the coaching staff. In 2008, Jamarcus Russell would be named the starter at the beginning of the season, but the Raiders would still fail tremendously. They improved on their 4-12 record by going 5-11, but it was mainly because of these players around Jamarcus Russell. The Raiders had a great defense that year with players like Nnamdi Asomugha, Derek Burgess, Stanford Routt, Michael Huff, Tyvon Branch, Tommy Kelly, just to name a few. And it would be Darren McFadden's rookie year where he would really stand out, especially week 2 against the Chiefs. The Raiders would even beat Brett Favre and the Jets this year, but it was this year where Jamarcus Russell just had some of the worst games in Raiders history. There are times when he would throw the football and absolutely nobody knew where it was going to. It was not entirely all his fault. He had a very unproven wide receiver group, and the main pass catching target he did have was tight end Zach Miller. Week 9 against Matt Ryan and the Atlanta Falcons would really encapsulate how terrible the Raiders were this year. The Oakland Raiders had 77 total yards in offense. Yes, 77 total yards in offense, the fewest since 1961. In this game, they only earned 3 first downs. Jamarcus Russell had one of the worst games as a quarterback in NFL history. Jamarcus would end the day with 31 passing yards on 19 attempts. And yes, he was sacked 4 times, but it was very clear in this game that there was no way he could be an NFL quarterback. And keep in mind, this is in year 2. 2007, he had sat behind Dante Culpepper and Josh McCown. This was in year 2 when he was supposed to shine. Jamarcus Russell claims he was thrown into the fire and not given much support, but the Raiders did let him rest one whole entire year before making him the starting quarterback. Lane Kiffin would be fired in week 4 of the 2008 season. Seems like he didn't get along with Al Davis. He tried to put the blame on the Raiders for the failure of the offense and also put the blame on them for drafting Jamarcus Russell. And so offensive line coach Tom Cable would take over and become the interim head coach. The thing is, Tom Cable eventually did not support Jamarcus Russell either. He would eventually call him one of the worst things to happen to the Raiders organization. And based on the Pivot podcast, it does not seem like Jamarcus Russell liked this guy either. Russell puts the blame on the coaching staff in 2008 and claims that his coaches started tripping. He was upset with the Raiders for fining him for weight issues. Him going over a certain weight in his contract led to him being fined. But when Jamarcus Russell talks about his coaches starting to trip and be tripping, and when he talks about his problems with his coaches, it's not clear exactly what he didn't like about his coaches.
I think when my coaches started tripping, bro, when they started bullshitting, I felt like really, what am I really here for?
He keeps repeating this message that they need to help him get better and they didn't help him get better, but it's not clear exactly what they weren't doing for him to get better. Jamarcus Russell had such a historically bad 2008 season that really the fan base started to decline tremendously. Russell would be upset that the passing game coordinator Paul Hackett would bring in players like Bruce Gradkowski for the 2009 season.
This man brought two guys that'll play with him. He brought 2 of his guys from Tampa Bay Buccaneers where he had already coached these guys.
In 2009, 7 of their 8 home games weren't even shown on local television because there was a blackout and the stadium was desperate to sell home tickets. So besides the home opener, no other home game for the Raiders in 2009 would be shown on local television. And this was even more sad because the Raiders tried to build hype for 2009 by trading for defensive lineman Richard Seymour. Jamarcus Russell was named the starter in 2009 by Tom Cable, but he would fail to get the victory in 3 interceptions and multiple bad passes. But once again, Jamarcus Russell didn't have the greatest supporting cast around him. In 2009, Darius Hayward-Bay and Louis Murphy, the 2 rookies, were the starting wide receivers. And Jamarcus Russell seems to blame some of these wide receivers in the Pivot podcast.
This shit wasn't going good at practice, bro. If you can't catch that motherfucker at practice, you damn sure ain't gonna catch it in the game.
Things were not working out between Tom Cable and Jamarcus Russell. In week 7 against the Jets, Jamarcus Russell would even be pulled from the game for Bruce Gradkowski instead, but Jamarcus Russell would continue to start the next 2 games, and eventually after a bad loss against the Chiefs, Tom Cable would decide to bench Jamarcus Russell indefinitely in 2009 for Bruce Gradkowski. And even when Bruce Gradkowski got injured, Tom Cable would decide to start Charlie Frye instead of Jamarcus Russell. What's really strange is the last game that Jamarcus Russell would appear in, week 17 against the Ravens. Hugh Jackson apparently went up to Jamarcus Russell and started talking to him, while Hugh Jackson was a part of the Baltimore Ravens.
Hugh Jackson came to Oakland to coach me. At least I thought. That's when I thought it was about to change. I got somebody who want to coach me, bro. Oh, shit.
Now, it was not Tom Cable's intention to start Jamarcus Russell in Week 17 against the Ravens, but Charlie Frye would get injured, and Jamarcus Russell would play the rest of the game and struggle tremendously, and the Raiders would go on to lose. But what Hugh Jackson told Jamarcus Russell before the game is that you might see a lot more of me in the future. And Hugh Jackson apparently thought Jamarcus Russell was talented and still does to this day. Hugh Jackson would become the offensive coordinator in 2010, and Jamarcus Russell would show up to OTAs and minicamp, and the two believed they would eventually work together until Jason Campbell was traded from the Washington Redskins to the Oakland Raiders. Apparently, as Jamarcus Russell's reps went down at minicamp, Hugh Jackson and Russell cried together and mourned what eventually led to be Jamarcus Russell's release.
I don't know how real the tears were, but he shed a few tears, you know, so did I. I thought this would be it.
So Jamarcus Russell would not see the field in 2010 for any team and would actually never see the NFL field even in a preseason matchup ever again. And we should say, although Jamarcus Russell does push back against some of the narratives about him, he still does say he takes responsibility for what has happened. He wishes he would have had the weight and control and wishes he would have watched more film. And there were moments in time in 2008 and 2009 where Jamarcus Russell would make some good plays and it would convince people like Al Davis that maybe there's still some hope for the guy. And it seems like there were some warning signs that Jamarcus Russell might not be the most focused player. You had Matt Millen at the time. He was working with the Detroit Lions and had an interview with Jamarcus Russell and thought the guy was nuts, said he wouldn't answer questions, kept looking at his watch, just did not seem like a focused guy. But when you look at Jamarcus Russell's scouting profile, how he did in college, how he did at the pro day and the combine, really all signs are pointing that he would still be a good player. And so it wasn't absolutely crazy for Al Davis to think to draft this guy. He was athletic and you know the talent was still there. He just intellectually did not put it together. And really, what if he did watch more film? Imagine what the Raiders could have had in Jamarcus Russell, but it did seem like Al Davis was being stubborn. People warned him about drafting Jamarcus Russell, but he really wanted to find the next great black quarterback, and so he went after people like Aaron Brooks the year prior, Dante Culpepper as his bridge QB, and he also eventually went on to trade for Jason Campbell. And we know that Al Davis would eventually pass away 4 years after drafting Jamarcus Russell, so it makes sense that he was trying to do something to leave a mark on his legacy before he went away. And also, when you see that Lane Kiffin is out of the NFL, Tom Cable never became a head coach again, he would only be an offensive line coach, it's fair to say that Jamarcus Russell never had an NFL caliber coach while he was playing with the Raiders. So although a lot of this is Jamarcus Russell's fault, why did he not go to a different NFL team in the future? Clearly his work ethic was a problem and that blame goes on him, but he also did inherit a bad situation. And what's crazy for Raiders fans is this will be a moment that we never forget. We will always talk about the Jamarcus Russell draft pick. This is historic, the biggest draft bust in NFL history. The last quarterback that Al Davis drafted in the official NFL draft. Terrell Pryor is technically the last quarterback that he drafted, but that's in the supplemental draft. But it is important to know this dark history so you can enjoy the good times that are to come. My name is WiFiWillie. Like this video if you haven't already, subscribe to the Raiders Rundown for more Raiders content, and ring the bell to get notifications. Peace out, and I hope you have a good one.